As a former fish store owner and someone who has a YouTube channel all about fish keeping, I am regularly asked, what's a good beginner fish? Now there are tons of answers for that question, but one of my personal favorites is the freshwater angelfish. Angels are one of the most popular fish in this hobby for many reasons, so it totally makes sense to do a video about them. Here are 10 things you should know about the freshwater angelfish.
Freshwater angelfish originate from several rivers throughout South America. But why is this not important? Well, most of the angelfish, I'd say 99% of them, are actually bred and raised in fish farms throughout the whole world. Angels have been one of the most popular fish in the aquarium hobby since people have been keeping fish in glass boxes. So there are farms everywhere that can't keep up with breeding them. One of the coolest things about angels is that they're relatively easy to breed. So it's not uncommon for your fish store to have angels that were bred by local breeders. We used to have tons of them from a local breeder here in King George, and John did a series with him. If you click on the eye, you can check out that series.
Just like discus that we talked about in a previous episode of 10 Things, it's near impossible to tell the difference between male and female angels. I've talked to breeders that have been around these fish for almost their entire lives, bred thousands of them, and they can't even tell. About the only way to really tell is to actually watch them in the act of breeding. The female's the one that lays the eggs. The good thing about the males and females looking almost identical is it doesn't matter which one you get, you're gonna have an absolutely gorgeous fish. Unlike the African cichlids that we talked about a couple weeks ago.
One of the good things about angels is that you don't need a giant tank to keep them. But, like we always say, bigger is always better. This is where you expect to see John edit in a clip by Michael Scott saying, "That's what she said," but not this time.
That's what she said.
We always say bigger is always better because it's just the right thing to give your fish the best life possible. You can raise a Great Dane in a one-bedroom apartment and it could live a full life, but would it really be the best life?
Yeah, I can answer that right now, sir. That'd be no.
Fish aren't any different than any other animal. They just want room to explore and swim. So do the right thing and give it to them. But if I was forced to give you a size, I would say a 29-gallon minimum. But, think about it. A 55-gallon setup doesn't cost that much more money, so I would actually recommend going that route instead.
Angels certainly aren't monster fish, but they're not exactly small either. One of the coolest things about them is that they grow tall where most fish in this hobby are going to grow long. They have a unique arrowhead shape with a really tall dorsal fin and a bunch of other fins hanging low. I call them dangly things. I never said I was an expert. A full-grown angel can be up to 6 inches long and 8 to 10 inches tall, while also being about 3/4 of an inch thick. Definitely gives them an interesting look. Depending on what type of angel you get, what size tank they're in, and what you're feeding them, they can certainly be smaller or even bigger than those sizes I just gave you. Do your job and allow these fish to reach their full potential. And the last thing I want to say about size is if you have anyone come up to you and tell you that your fish is only going to grow to the size of the tank, run away as fast as you can and never take advice about fish keeping from that person ever again.
Move it, man, go on, move it! Move it! Go on!
If you want to breed angels, then you're in luck because they're known for being pretty simple to breed. The first thing you'll need is a breeding pair. You can go about this one of two ways. You can buy 6 to 8 angels, grow them, take good care of them, and they will naturally pair off, and that will be how you get your pair. Or you can buy a proven breeder pair. That's simple. The good thing about buying a bunch and letting them pair off naturally is if you buy 6 to 8 of them, you could end up with multiple pairs out of the group. Depending on how much breeding you want, I guess this could be a bad thing. If you choose to buy a proven breeding pair, this may cost you a pretty penny. But if you have a specific type you want to breed, or you only want one pair, then this is probably the way you want to go. Angels are vertical egg layers. This means that when a male and female pair off and decide they're going to breed, they will clean a spot on a vertical surface. This could be the glass, a decoration, a piece of wood, or even a leaf from an Amazon sword that they decide they want to use as their spawning site. The female will lay the eggs in a vertical straight line and the male will follow and fertilize them. After all the eggs are laid and fertilized, that's when the cleaning and protection process begins. This is when your sweet little angels will not live up to their name, and they'll be fiercely protective. And if you have any other fish in a tank, you're going to want to keep a very close eye on them. Take my word for it, angels are not angels when they're protecting eggs.
Angels are cichlids, but don't let that scare you. A lot of people believe that if a fish is a cichlid, it automatically is going to be mean and want to kill everything else in the tank. For the most part, that's not the case with angels, unless they're breeding like Lisa just talked about. Angels typically get along with other fish in the tank. If you remember in our Discus 10 Things episode, we talked about how you need to worry about other fish bothering your discus more than you do your discus bothering them. But with angels, that's not always the case. Angels and discus have a lot of similarities, but this isn't one of them. Angels can fight. They don't want to, but they'll certainly defend themselves if they need to. But again, don't let this be something that scares you. Angels typically get along with everyone, and they're just sweethearts. The list of fish that we've kept with angels is very long, and we really haven't had any problems with them at all. But of course, there is always exceptions. We'll get into that more in the tank mates section a little bit later.
Angels are very hardy and they can tolerate a wide range of water parameters. We generally like to keep our temperature at 78 to 82 degrees and a little bit more on the softer side. 99% of angels that you find at pet stores are captive bred, which means they were either bred in tanks in either farms or some guy's basement. I bet everything I have that the water in those farms doesn't match the water in the Amazon. This is the only water these fish have ever known. So drastically changing their water to match the Amazon could actually have a negative effect on them. Talk to the vendor you're purchasing your angels from. See what their water parameters are. Try matching that rather than the Amazon. Consistency is key. Keeping your water stable rather than fluctuating all over the place while you're chasing a certain pH will give you the best results and keep your fish happy for a long time.
We've been talking about it throughout this entire video. Angels really aren't a problem as long as they're not protecting fry in the tank. They really won't bother any of the other fish in there. When you're making your plan of fish that you're going to keep with your angels, you're going to want to look for fish labeled as community fish, like tetras, barbs, rainbows, gouramis. They also do really well with live bearers, but you have to understand live bearers are always bearing lives, which means there's going to be tasty little treats swimming around in the tank with your angels. And believe me, if it can fit in their mouth, it's going to be food. I guess you could call that population control if you really don't want there to be breeding in your tank. But John, what about cleanup crews? Angels are not going to bother your cleanup crews. Go ahead and get your snails, your cory cats, your bristlenose plecos, or even your common plecos. They're all going to be fine. They're not going to bother them. I could spend all day long talking about fish that could go with angels. The list is very long. The one thing I want you to think about, though, is stay away from fish that have the reputation of being fin nippers, like tiger barbs. You don't want these fish chewing all over your angel's dangly things.
Angels are omnivores, which means they like both meaty foods and they like foods with a higher vegetable content. We've never known them to be finicky eaters. Actually, it's the opposite. I don't remember a food that they won't eat. We've had success with all kinds of foods, from live foods like brine shrimp to frozen foods, pellets, and flakes. One of the coolest things about feeding angels is that they're so popular you'll see them on labels all over fish food. If you see angels on fish food, then you know it is safe to feed your fish. The best thing for your angels is going to be giving them a variety in their diet. Maybe have some frozen brine shrimp, some cobalt cichlid flakes, and some fluval buck bites. That ought to keep them fat and happy.
All right, folks, I'm gonna give it to you straight. I go into a lot of houses for my work, and I see a lot of fish tanks in these people's houses. Some of them are really nice, and some... One thing I see pretty regularly is people that have an aquarium in the corner, and you can tell that they obviously don't care about that tank. And in there will be a couple of big, beautiful angelfish. Why do you think that is? Well, it's because angelfish are very hardy. Now, I'm not telling you that these fish are bulletproof, but they can tolerate a lot of things, which makes them really a great beginner fish, like we've been talking about through this whole video. But don't forget that as a fish keeper, you have the obligation to provide that fish with the best environment possible so that they can thrive and live a long, happy life. The easier the fish is, the easier this is going to be for you if you're new. So there you go. Great beginner fish. Angels are easy to keep, they don't require a gigantic aquarium, and they're absolutely gorgeous, so this makes them a great beginner fish. I just get this warm and fuzzy feeling all over when I think about angels. I don't know. Does that make me weird? So there you go, 10 things you should know about the freshwater angelfish. We upload new episodes of 10 Things every single week, so if you found this helpful, if you found it entertaining, why don't you consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again next week with 10 more things.